Okay, well, I hope you're sitting comfortably because I'm about to open Pandora's box. Because I'm about to say something that's going to be extremely unpopular with a lot of you guys. And it's to do with game streaming. This comes about following on from the news we got the other day that Sony and Microsoft were going to be collaborating to provide streaming services. Or, as it turns out, Sony are going to be using Microsoft's Azure servers for their streaming service. And also on the tail of Kenshiro Yoshida yesterday talking about how he sees the future of gaming. And this has caused some controversy, and it's got some people rather angry. We've already heard from Sony that they think that the future of gaming is streaming. Sean Layden said something about this back in March this year. And he says, I don't want to put too fine a point on this because it might upset some people. But I think effectively we're looking at a kind of post-console world where you can have quality gaming experiences across a variety of technologies. Fast forward to yesterday, 21st of May this year, and we've got Yoshida saying, if you look at the game industry as a whole, the console market is not a major market. Rather, it's a niche market, if you will. But for core gamers, immersive experiences are something we would like to value. In this respect, for the time being, the console as something that brings about computing functionality to the users is very important. But on the other hand, technology will progress. And so, as I said today, the Remote Play and PlayStation Now, the streaming services, will be worked on in parallel. That is what we are doing at this moment. Sony are doing what any company would do if they've got any sense. They're working with current technology, they're working with consoles and providing consoles for gamers, but they're also looking at moving forward with new technology, in this case streaming. And that's just good sense. But unfortunately, some people got their panties in a pickle over the fact that he was saying that streaming in effect is the future and that console gaming is a niche market, as if somehow he was insulting the core gamer. Unfortunately, while I and many of us don't like the idea that we're moving towards streaming, we can't get away from the fact that that is true. Console gaming is a niche market. PC gaming is bigger, and digital, mobile, is bigger still. And if you don't believe me, look at some figures. If you look at the mobile gaming market versus the console gaming market in 2016, the mobile gaming market in the US, and this is just the US before you even start factoring in China and the rest of Asia, mobile games was estimated to generate the most revenue in the digital games industry in the US, taking up 39.9% of the share. That's as compared to console games, which was estimated to take up 18.9% of the share. So in terms of revenue, mobile gaming is worth almost double, in fact more than double. And that was in 2016. Where do you think that has moved to now? Do you think console gaming has overtaken mobile gaming or clawed some of this back? Or do you think mobile gaming has continued to grow faster than console gaming? Because as far as I'm concerned, without seeing any figures, I'll bet you any money you like that it's mobile gaming that's moved the fastest. And it's all very well us sitting here twiddling our thumbs and chunnering and getting annoyed about the idea that Sony and Microsoft and everybody else are moving towards streaming and mobile, but that's where the money is, and they are going to follow the money. If you look at what's happening with the gaming market, it's opening out and going towards a much bigger audience. And I know core gamers don't like this because they see the industry moving away from them and looking at what they refer to disparagingly as casuals, but that's just the way it is. We don't have to like it, but we're not going to be able to do a great deal about it. And I've heard people saying, oh, you know, we need to vote with our wallets and we need to stop supporting these things. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether we support them or not. We're not that audience. And the bigger audience is the likes of the mobile audience that's out there. And that's the audience they're going for with these streaming services. And that's the audience they're going to get with these streaming services. The people who won't necessarily buy a console, or maybe might buy one console, and then will see the streaming service on their phone or their tablet or their PC or whatever it might be that they're using, their toaster, and they'll be able to play a game. And as the latency gets better, and let's be honest, most of these guys probably don't care that much about latency anyway. You know, if you're playing Candy Crush, does latency really matter? They're going to buy more and more into gaming, and they're going to spend more and more money on gaming. And that's going to push these companies even more in that direction. And they can see the direction of travel here. It's pretty obvious for anybody who looks that mobile gaming is the big market. Calling console gaming niche, you might find it insulting. But the reality is, it's the truth. Mobile gaming is the big market. Console gaming, it's a bit like, I was, still am, a big fan of science fiction. And within the science fiction community, certainly amongst people like me who like to read science fiction, there was a certain amount of snobbery. And we looked down our noses at people who watch TV and film science fiction. And, you know, this was some years ago. It's moved a bit now. There still are people out there holding out and looking at people who like the Marvel movies and like TV science fiction and looking down their noses at those people and sneering at them. But the reality is that science fiction now exists in film and television in a much bigger way than it does in literature. The real money, the real business, is in those mediums. It's not in the written form. But you get a dovetailing effect. What happens is people come into looking at science fiction through the likes of Doctor Who or Star Trek or Babylon 5 or Stargate or whatever it might be, even something like Game of Thrones, which is obviously more fantasy. But those things will grow the literature of that area, of that genre, if you like, and will help the writers who are writing those books. So it's no bad thing. And some of the people who start off looking at the TV and the films will come back and start reading the books. Most won't. That's the reality of it. Most won't get into the literature. But some will, and it'll keep it ticking over. And then obviously the people who are writing the books will then write stuff for TV, write stuff for films, or there will be right sport, and it will grow again. And I see this happening with the gaming market. We may not like it, we may not like the streaming, but it's where the money's at. And so the likes of Sony, Microsoft, and even eventually Nintendo, they're already looking at mobile and they're already bringing their games to mobile. These companies will move over to mobile and streaming. And if you look at Microsoft, they're looking at having, say, like a console or something you can stick under your telly and then have it on your phone, your PC, whatever. And that's the future. The problem will be if they still don't accommodate the hardcore gamer. And if you look at what Yoshida says, he says that he still wants to accommodate the hardcore gamer. And we can only hope that that's the case. But I use another analogy. If you look at hi-fi, you look at music, most people, and I think I've said this in previous videos, most people who listen to music are quite happy with a little MIDI system with a speaker up on the shelf and another one sat behind the couch. And then they talk about the stereo effect, which they're not getting. But then you've got the hardcore music fan. And some of those people get into the hardware in a big way and they spend an awful lot of money on the hardware. And you hear them talking about, oh, we're the ones driving the music industry. No, they're not. They're not the ones driving the music industry. What drives the music industry are the people buying now CDs, or as we've moved into streaming, downloading compilations of pop songs. That's where the money is. And the other artists gain from that to some degree. As long as it doesn't overly dominate, there will be some sort of bleed over and you will get people listening to more interesting and important music, if you want to put it that way. And this will happen with gaming as I see it. The mainstream of people will be playing games on their phones. They may have some sort of streaming console. They may have a PC that they can stream games to, but they're not going to be interested in having the best hardware. They're not going to be interested in owning the games as long as they can play them. That will leave the niche. And I'm sorry to say it again, but we are a niche. Yoshida is absolutely right. Just look at the numbers. The niche will still be there. The hardcore gamers will still be there. And they're the people who, to some degree, will drive quality. They're the ones who will be watching the independent films in the movie industry, or they're the ones who are listening to some sort of obscure ska band or some obscure prog rock band or something. They kind of keep these things ticking over, and you need both ends of the industry. Sony, if they have any sense, and Microsoft, if they have any sense, and Nintendo, if they go down this road, which they will, know this. They know they have to keep the hardcore gamer ticking over. They know they have to keep providing us with something, because we are the other end of that spectrum. And we are important, but we are not the most important. And we need to get to grips with that. We need to come to terms with that. We're important in a sense because we're the ones who get enthusiastic and excited, and we're the ones who talk to people about video games. You know, we're the real fans, but we're not the real money. And that's just how it is. And as I say, as long as Sony and Microsoft and others don't completely do away with the ability to own games, and that's my real fear, that we'll end up in a streaming world and we won't be able to buy games, and especially we won't be able to buy games in physical form. If that happens, then I'll start to really worry, because then we won't be able to have that choice. We'll be locked into streaming. But I see that the world is going to be like with the record industry, where you've got people who go out and buy vinyl, but they're not a big part of the industry. And this is going to be the same with gaming. There will be people who want to buy, editions that are physical. And it'll become even more of a niche market as time goes on. There will be people like me who want to buy physical copies, and there will be collectors out there who want to buy physical copies, people who want to put the disc in. Now, if the disc disappears completely and you can only stream or you can only buy digitally, well, as I say, that worries me. But for the time being, if they stick with having both areas of the market and they allow us to have that choice, that'll be fine. We need to accept streaming. What we don't need to accept is that streaming is going to be the only game in town. And we need to send that message clearly. I agree with people on that one. Other than that, though, we need to get over it because it's happening. It's just the way it is. It's going to happen, and we can go with it, or we can just channel away. But anyway, look, that's what I think about it. You guys might think I'm completely wrong. You probably will on this one, because I know a lot of people are really, really unhappy about the idea of moving into a world where games are provided through streaming. And I know there's good reasons for that. But it is the way it's going. It's an inevitability. And if you can't change something, you kind of have to go with it. And saying not buying it, not buying these services, well, we can not buy these services as much as we like, but it's not going to change a damn thing because we're not the big market. And I know I keep saying that, but that's just the way it is. Anyway, that's me done. I really am finishing this time, and I'm going to go and grab myself a cup of tea, and I will speak to you guys in the next one. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or come and have a chat. And I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Do you know what it's like to leave everything behind? Your home, loved ones, to head deep into the wilds, perhaps never to return.